So I'm a psychologist. It started out 30 years ago working with the early experiments that are patients of Dr. Kirkwood's on interferon, and it's been amazing to see how things have developed. Let me just start. This is a great introduction to my talk about living with cancer because the previous Dr. Navarre's talk. People ask me what I do, and they think I talk about people's thoughts and feelings and existential issues, and I do some of that. I spend a lot more time talking about poop. I really do. And so looking at all of you guys, in terms of mental health, constipation and diarrhea are very detrimental to quality of life. So that is a major thing I do in my psychotherapy sessions. So let me just say, so I am here, and I will try to keep this short to keep us on time. I'll rush through some of this, and if you guys have questions, you can ask me to speak more in the end about some of these. So one of the major things I find that one of the stressors of living with cancer is everyone wants to give you advice. I'm here to give you advice. And so it's generally well-meaning. I mean well, I promise. It's sometimes helpful. But I think most of you probably have found it sometimes uncomfortable and makes things harder. So I was initially going to ask you for some experiences you'd had with getting advice, but I'd encourage all of you, my guess is you've all had some good advice, and somewhere that same relative keeps sending you that same supplement and wanting you to take it, and it can be challenging. I am just going to do a few brief strategies for coping with cancer. I just wanted to say I think some of the best material available on coping with cancer is from the National Cancer Institute. If you go on their website, look under their publications section, you'll find these 3 booklets. You can read them online or download them, or you can go to our Patient Education Center at Hillman. They will hand you a gorgeous printed copy of it, which is quite nice. But one is called Taking Time. It's sort of psychological issues, coping with cancer in general. Another is When Cancer Comes Back. That's a different set of issues. And the last is Coping with Advanced Cancer. So these are all related but different issues. These are wonderful books about that. So let me start by saying I'm going to be a complete failure because my advice to you is there is no right or wrong way to cope with cancer. You really, really need to do this in a way that fits with your personality and your values. And people will give you lots of advice. You know what works for you. I would encourage you to do it. One of the challenges with that, however, is the same thing is true for the significant others in your life. They have ways of coping with cancer, coping with stressors that work for them. And one of the mysteries of life is often people with opposite styles of coping seem to come together. One of the classic things is in almost any of you guys looking at your spouses, your siblings, your parents, your children, you will find that some of you are talkers. You think the best thing to do is to talk about your feelings, talk about the situation. Others prefer not to talk about feelings and thoughts. Let me just say they are both perfectly healthy ways of dealing with things. My son was a child of 2 psychologists. He got into the car, he was about 8, got into the car one day. Something terrible had clearly happened at school. There's just no doubt about it. I looked at him, I said, Andrew, what happened? And he was really quiet. And then he just said, Mom, talking only makes it worse. So I would just like for the non-talkers in the room, you're fine. There is also the half full, half empty group. I think all of you, probably the people you know, divide on that. Sometimes it's called optimist, and for the half empty group, depending on your perspective, it's a pessimist or a realist. Let me just say these are both very valuable perspectives on an issue. And then I think people vary enormously on how much information they want. So I think one of the challenging things to deal with in living with cancer is people don't have personality changes with cancer. So I think what all of us, I don't know if you guys all experienced the first few weeks after the diagnosis, was everybody just wonderful? Kind of you smell the roses, everybody got along really well. And then what happens under stress is that however you normally cope, you just do more of it. If you don't like to talk, you really don't want to talk now. If you want to talk, you really want to talk now. So it gets to be challenging. One of the biggest things in living with cancer is how do you live with the people around you? And I just want to say, to me, the whole secret of mental health is actually the serenity prayer. and I'm sure you guys have heard it. It's give me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I would just say I think that is a strategy, not an easy one, but a strategy to be applied to almost any life problem. So another big one that has been popular, and was when I started doing this work, it was the beginning of cure your cancer through positive thinking. And so this has evolved, but the common thought in our culture is that negative thoughts will make your cancer worse. There's a wonderful phrase that was coined called the prison of positive thinking. And I don't know how many of you are feeling like you just have to kind of be relentlessly cheerful no matter how you're feeling. You have to never get mad, never get upset. Well, the good news, since most of us feel these things, is that feeling depressed, anxious, angry, hopeless, that will not affect the outcome of your disease. You can very, very safely feel those feelings and know that you're not making yourself worse. They're normal, healthy reactions to a difficult situation. What's a strategy for dealing with all of these challenging emotions? So one is I would just encourage you because it feels better to be positive, it generally feels better, is to be positive about all of the emotions that occur. If you're depressed, know that's okay, there are depressing things happening. If you're angry at people around you, that's okay to be angry. You then want to think, how do I deal with those feelings? But the feelings themselves are not dangerous. So a big issue that I run, and what I did for this talk is just trying to hit some of the 5 most popular things I do in my sessions. So people talk a lot about the challenges of living with uncertainty. And I don't know how many of you guys have tried to talk to friends about that, whatever your fears are about the future. And people will say, oh, I could get hit by a bus anytime. Have you guys, anybody had that? People say that? That could happen to me anytime. You know something's wrong about that, but you can't put your finger on. That's not my situation. And early in my career, about 30 years ago actually, I was at a conference where a cancer patient was speaking in a forum just like this, and she said, let me tell you what's wrong with that statement. She had cancer. She said, I'm standing in the middle of the street. The bus is coming straight toward me, and I don't know if it has brakes. That is not the same thing as theoretically I could get hit by a bus. So some of you are maybe in the situation where the bus is close right now and you don't know if it has brakes. Others are in the situation where the bus is a long way away, but you're always living in the middle of the street with the bus coming toward you. So the question is, and I can say if you get a number of years past the cancer issues, the bus gets way far out away. But I think finding strategies for living in the middle of the street is one of the ways I think about my job. And they're basically related to uncertainty. 2 equally good strategies for managing uncertainty. So one is to focus on the belief that I'm going to be okay. It's really going to be okay. If in the future things don't go well, I will be able to deal with it. So in this strategy, what you do is focus all of your energy on, I'm going to be okay, belief if things go wrong, I will be able to deal with it, and then you push all thoughts of this cancer out of your mind, and I'll give you a couple of ways to do that in a minute. The second equally good strategy is to say, I hope I'm going to be okay, but let me spend a little bit of time thinking about how I would manage if things do not go well. Is that through religious faith, through my relationships with other people, through talking to my physicians? There are ways to come to some peace of mind about things not going well. It doesn't mean it's the preferred outcome, but there are ways to do that. So in the second strategy, you think, hope you're going to be okay. You consider the possibility that you aren't and find ways to deal with it. And then just like the first strategy, you spend most of your energy pushing these thoughts out of your mind and living your life. So how can you push these thoughts out of your mind? This one is called thought stopping, and I have to say it's probably the top favorite technique that I teach people in the work I do. So the idea in thought stopping is, honest and truly, I think all of us probably think we can multitask. Some are people are good multitaskers, some aren't. It turns out, honestly, when you multitask, you are not thinking of two things at the same time. You are bouncing back and forth between them. And they prove this at CMU by putting people in scanners. You can only focus on one thought at a time. Your brain works that way. So now I'm going to have all of you guys do this. If you have a thought in your mind that you don't want to be there, and that thought can be anything from major thoughts about cancer to minor things like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to mow my lawn when I get home. So any thought works fine. What I want you to do is imagine a physical object that means stop. And I want all of you to do this. And I want you to actually look at it. So common things are stop sign, stop light, red flag. So everybody pick an object that means stop, okay? Now, what I want you to do is really see that object. If you're looking at it, and I'm just going to say it's a stop sign, if you're looking at a stop sign, you can't be thinking about anything else. So I want you to really look at it. I want you to see what color this object is, what the outline of it is, if you want, what the background of it is. Really see it. Okay. Second thing you're going to do is hear yourself say, stop. And it's not please stop, it's stop. And I want you to really hear yourself say it. If you're alone, you can say it out loud. It'd be interesting if everybody said it, actually. The third thing I want you to do, and I'm going to have all you guys do this, I want you to focus on something else, anything else. It makes no difference. I want you to look at the letters in my slide. I want you to look at your finger. I want you to stare at the ceiling. I want you to focus on something else. It makes no difference what it is. Now, if you're doing this in real life with a worry, this technique will be effective for approximately 1 second. That's how long it's going to last. That worry is going to come zooming right back in. Do not get flustered. Do not get upset. Repeat the procedure. See the object that means stop. Say stop. Focus on something else. Stand up. Walk into the kitchen. Wash the dishes. The thoughts are going to keep coming back, but if you'll find that if you continue to just be patient with yourself, patiently repeat the procedure, you will get 5 and 10 and 15-minute breaks from the worry. It's extremely effective. I would say also, all of you also have other ways naturally you distract yourself from the thoughts, whether it's listening to music, exercising, doing the dishes, whatever they are. Take anything you normally do, you can use that as a thought-stopping technique. So a second way to do all of this, a second way to deal with worry, and it's one of the great ways is for any of you, I'm sure you deal with scans where you have to, you're going to have a scan in a week or a month. I bet every one of you can tell me when your next scan is. So this is called scheduling worry. So whatever thought stopping you're going to use, you use that. Scheduling worry is, I will say, if you are worried or if you're a worrier, and I am a worrier, it never, ever, ever helps to tell a worrier not to worry. I will just say, for all of you who tell your worrying family not to worry, you're making it worse. Never say that. And don't say it to yourself either. Doesn't work. All right. So what you can do is, you can, however, choose periods of time when you will worry and not worry. You literally schedule the worry. So if you tell a worrier, don't worry, that doesn't work so well. But if you tell a worrier, how about if you worry an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon? So to give you some ideas, some schedules you can do, you can schedule it an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. I know mothers that will say, I'm going to worry during the day before my kids come home from school. The minute my kid walks through the door, I don't worry. One of the schedules that can work in a family is when everybody gets together at dinner time, they talk about their worries. No worries after dinner. Doesn't matter how you schedule it. There's no magic to this. The first 5 minutes of every hour, you pick a schedule that works for you. And most of us can put our worry into smaller periods of time. So the whole goal in this is to get rest periods from the worry. With a scan, one of the things that helps really, really well, so let's just say your next scan is Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. So what most people would do would be worry between now, what's today, Saturday, 3 or 4 days until Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. So the way scheduling worry works with this is that every single time you think, I'm worried about the scan result, You pick a time 24 hours before the scan. That's going to be Monday morning at 10 o'clock. And every time, all day, all weekend, that you want to worry, you say, I will start worrying Monday morning at 10 o'clock. And then go ahead and worry starting Monday morning at 10 o'clock. So you push it to 24 hours before the scan. People who do this in the 24 hours find after they realize, oh, I can do that. They go, 24 hours is way longer and I want to be worrying. So you press it to the night of the scan. And then the number of people who get it to, it's when I'm sitting in Dr. Kirkwood's waiting room. That's when I'll start worrying. So you can schedule that worry wherever you want, but that's a tremendously effective technique. So let me also put in a big plug. These are we've been talking about behavioral and cognitive techniques. I think one of the things that can really help all of us under times of stress is to pay attention to the things that mean something to us. And I would just encourage you not to walk around smelling the roses all day long. I'm just not a saint. I bet you aren't saints. That's just not going to work. But if you can take a couple of minutes a day to just say, I'm going to pay attention to what's important to me. I'm going to pay attention to something lovely in my life. And it can be meaning with a big M, all grand themes, or it can be a tiny thing like that guy who smiled at me on the elevator this morning. That was really, really, really amazing. So I would encourage you to take a few minutes a day just to think of those things, or you can do it throughout the day. And I'll just show you one thing I do, which is because I have OCD, and when I'm stressed, it's a little hard for me to kind of think of meaning. But because I have OCD, I have on my computer desktop some little icons of some of my favorite pictures. And I just click that button. It works well with my OCD and my attention deficit disorder. Click on the button. This is often one I click on. And I will tell you, and to give you the idea about meaning, when I look at this picture, and it was from a Bing, one of their daily pictures, it brings back memories for me of my childhood playing on the beach. So sometimes that's where my mind will go. Sometimes it'll go to it's just beautiful. There's no meaning. It's just gorgeous. And the other is some existential themes. Where do I fit in the universe? So I would encourage you guys, if you have things that can be good jogs of the things that are important to you, pictures of people you love, put them in places that are easy to get to that'll jog your memory. So I think we probably, I don't know where we are in time. I'm happy to take any questions or move on to the next speaker.